I'd like to begin my topic this morning, or this afternoon rather, welcoming everybody and all the viewers and listeners. And we're going to be discussing engineering skills, pipelines, and the capacity thereof. I've taken a different route in terms of trying to explain this, and many of us that are listening are probably familiar with the challenges that we face within the industry. But I've started off my statement by saying that we have failed. South African engineers have failed. And then we ask the question, what have we failed in? We have failed in mentoring the next generation of competent engineers. And we see this at all levels, institutional levels, government levels, and even in the private sector. And this is a problem. So now that I have your attention, now you might be asking yourself as an engineer, how have I failed? How has the industry failed? You see, failure is never the end. And in order to succeed, one needs to fail. And if you have never failed, have you really tried anything? So we need to use this opportunity in developing the engineering skills required to meet the country's long-term infrastructure objectives. Now, we know that capacity is a matter of supply and demand. And infrastructure growth is generally higher than the engineering skills development, which has been extensively monitored and reported by institutes such as CIDB and CESA. However, over the past few years, there seems to be an increasing number of learners entering training institutions. We could suggest that the supply should be more than adequate to cover the increased demands. So where is this demand coming from? As in any developing country, we need to develop our infrastructure, and I will go through a bit of reasons why infrastructure development is so important in the country, as much as we already know these things. But all spheres of government are dependent on engineering services to address vital needs in our communities. However, in particular with South Africa, when I did a bit of research, not too extensive research, but we find that we are lagging behind other developing countries on average per population, per engineer. What I mean is that in South Africa, one engineer services about 3,200 people, compared to Brazil, which is about 230, and Malaysia, which is about 550 per engineer. The discrepancy in this benchmark points to one thing, that South Africa is severely under-engineered. Now, not to take up too much time, engineering is something that, we develop, we engineer, we make it perfect. If it's not perfect, we go back in history, we look at how it was done, and we try and make it better. So if we look back at history, and history tells us that empires which made infrastructure a priority are empires who were successful. And I've listed three empires, namely the Roman Empire, which established trade routes in the Mediterranean Sea, which is still heavily used today. And they did this by building lighthouses, docks, harbors, which effectively grew the economy. So we can see how the two are related, infrastructure and economy. The second one was the Mongolian Empire, and they also constructed massive portal systems throughout the entire empire. By doing so, they encouraged shipping and communication, which they realized helped the trade to flourish. And then the well-known one is the British Empire, which also used naval power to influence the growth of its economy and global power, as we know. So when we look at these types of infrastructure, it gives you a sense that it is important to the growth of a country. When we look at our country, South Africa, we know that we have some very good engineers, we have some very good infrastructure, but we know that we are still behind and we still need to take it forward. So how do we build that capacity? How do we build the competent engineers up to handle such challenges? And in today's world, you see that countries are famous for iconic structures, such as Australia's Sydney Opera House, India's Taj Mahal, and New York's Empire State Building, and I can go on. Why am I saying all this? Is that we need to bring relevance back to the industry for us to create or open up that pipeline for young engineers to come through, to go through the training programs, to become competent and effectively work to build up our country's infrastructure. My driving point this afternoon is that there's a need and an urgency to bring a prestige label back to the engineering realm and inspire the current and next generation that there is a future in engineering. We know at this time, the boom of 2010, the 2010 World Cup has sort of come to a plateau, if not a dip. And we're seeing that many firms in the industry are suffering now and going through a sort of a depression. So I'm here to encourage the young engineer. I'm here to encourage those firms to say, we need to bring back that prestige. And how do we do that? The first point I have is public knowledge. How are engineers viewed in the eyes of the public? What is it that we do? And what is the value that people see in us? I take the example of a doctor. People see a value in a doctor because they have to deal with the doctor face-to-face, one-on-one. And he impacts your life directly, so you see the value. Yet engineers impact lives of all lives, a lot of lives, all at once. And we don't really engage with an engineer one-on-one. For example, if you open your tap at home, there's water, you flush the toilet, if you switch the lights on, it comes on, and there's no questions. So that challenge exists in understanding the relevance of engineering. And whether we like it or not, unfortunately, we are lumped in with the construction sector, which may or may not have a negative view about our industry. I'll give you an example. My dad is an educated man, and he's a very old school person. Yet I still struggle to explain, or maybe he struggles to understand what it is a professional engineer or engineering technologist or engineering technician does. When I decided that I was going to study engineering, my dad didn't really have an idea. He thought that I would be working in construction, mixing concrete. And then 15 years later, he still struggles to grasp. He knows that it has something to do with buildings or pipelines or roads, but he doesn't actually know what it is that we do. You see, that example is one of many, and how many of the public know the importance of an engineer? When there's a water problem or power outage, what do people do? We blame the municipality. And internally we'll gripe about it. However, those may just be simple problems which require simple engineering solutions. So in order to impact skills development at a grassroots level, I believe a top-down approach is to be considered. The major client bodies and government organizations that require these engineering skills and services need to show appreciation to the industry through fair compensation for such services. This, in turn, ensuring engineering firms has the capability and capacity to employ and remunerate its graduates at a respectable level. Now, with that being said, I give an example. We get many graduates looking for employment, and it breaks my heart because I've got a passion for the engineering field, particularly civil engineering. So when a graduate seeks employment, they have some sort of preconceived salary expectation, which is a reality. A certain lifestyle needs to be provided, and maybe if we take an example, an entry-level car, whether it's a Polo, maybe a 1 or 2 bedroom flat, and necessary savings and such. These are all reasonable, and it's only fair on the firm looking to employ a graduate to pay them so that they can maintain this level of lifestyle. What we've noticed over the past few years is that this is not realistically possible, which is a sad reality. So if we go further back, when an individual is deciding on a career path, the #1 driver is what type of lifestyle will I want, i.e. what salary can I earn? Unfortunately, with the discounted fees and the cut rates, this has created somewhat of a bad image. So the passion for this industry can only take us so far before it needs to turn into a profit. My point is here that when you are at school and you look at an engineer, you want to have some sort of idea that there's a prestige label to it. That we need to, from the grassroots level, from schooling institutions through higher education and training, even into training centers, and then further into the mentorship programs, that we need to have this prestige brought back to the industry so that we can get that passion turned into some profit. The construction and engineering professions are often not regarded as a first choice or first career choice by many learners, owing to a combination of the image of the industry and lack of attractiveness. So by improving the attractiveness of the industry requires ongoing interventions by government departments as well as by the industry and professional associations. So in my closing statements, my passion is that we need to inspire the next generation. We need to inspire those that are in school, that are choosing a career path, looking at maths and science on higher grade. Well, now it's maths, pure maths, on those type of levels, because they know there's an end goal. So in closing, let us bring passion of engineering to schooling and higher education systems, inspiring the generations to come and creating longevity of engineering in our beloved country. Thank you very much.